Hi everyone, just wanted to go over our summary information from last week. Just a couple brief comments and then I'll dig into the quiz. So in our discussion, we had a discussion of being a chief marketing officer at a health plan, and the CFO, head of risk assessment, think that prices should be increased, but you want to take a look at elasticity of demand, um, and how that would impact your interest in raising the premiums or not. So the one thing, and I'd mentioned this in a few of the posted comments that I made, generally. The elasticity of demand is less in healthcare overall. It's not eliminated. It's not completely inelastic to demand. In years past, many years ago, it was fairly inelastic to demand. But given the advent of the consumer-driven health plans and more folks purchasing health insurance at a higher cost, because either our employers are passing that on to us or because we're paying out of pocket for a private plan, um, healthcare is becoming much more elastic, but it's still fairly inelastic as compared to other industries like retail, hospitality, etc. Um, what you want to look at is your overall who's coming into your plan, what types of segments are you serving, just to get a feel for your socioeconomic groupings, and even to take a look at some additional market research. Maybe you do some of your own market research through focus groups or surveys about, if the price of your premium was to raise 5%, 10%, would you maintain? Do we provide enough value? Would you maintain your plan with us, or would you move on to elsewhere, etc. So I think that there are a lot of things that go into the elasticity of demand. Obviously, there's certain formulas which to calculate based on price and supply, demand, and figuring out exactly how things, one industry may be more elastic than another. But just in thinking about it kind of holistically from the marketing point of view, how can we figure out, why might we want to increase price? Why might we want to not increase price? So there were a lot of good comments. A lot had to do with, the other players in the market, the folks that you're serving, who is your constituency that you're serving. There's a lot of different things that'll go into it. So some good discussion, and I was happy to see folks. Some folks didn't really dig into that demand piece, but you still had some really good comments on what types of things you would look at, and they all kind of feed into that. I have not, as you probably know, I'm a little behind on, seems like I've been behind all term, but I'm hoping to finish up the review of the drafts today, because I know that you really want to get moving on those projects. They're due on Sunday. But so I have not dug into our written assignment from last week yet, but hope to do that shortly. Also, your day in the life summary. Hopefully you found that helpful, to get a real picture from someone that's working in the industry, in over PR and marketing, just to get a feel for what it's like to work in that field. And it's interesting to kind of get that true day in the life. What is it that they do day to day? What types of things are they responsible for in that department, etc. So hopefully you found that interesting and helpful. So I do want to go over the quiz questions. The first one is a true-false. It is legal to set artificially high regular prices and then announce a sale at prices close to previous everyday prices. Is it legal to set high prices that are inflated, artificially high prices, and then announce a sale that brings those prices back down to what your normal price is. And no, that is not legal. So our answer here was false. It is illegal. That's considered deceptive pricing. There's a lot of things, deceptive pricing in that way, or even think about bait and switch schemes, where you'll, a provider I see them more in the areas of healthcare where people have to pay cash. So it could be cosmetics, it could be cosmetic surgeries or procedures, it could be vision care, it could be dental care, where patient sees an ad or sees something that really drives them into an organization, and then once they get there, they don't have any more of those frames, or that special doesn't apply to you because you're not eligible for this specific type of credit. That I see that sometimes through dental or in cosmetic surgery. Just the notion of, we thought this procedure was going to be this much, but it ended up being 3 times as much, and now you're on the hook for that because in your contract somewhere that was mentioned. So those bait and switch type schemes, or artificially setting high prices, they kind of all fall into that same bucket of deceptive pricing practices, which are illegal. Next question. An effective marketing channel will remain effective over the whole product life cycle. And the answer to that was also false. Over a product life cycle, particular marketing channels will likely shift or may shift. Because oftentimes when an early buyer comes in, so someone that's jumping right into the market early on or jumping into the product space early on, they are less interested in what the cost is. They're looking at what value they're getting for it. So they're typically willing to pay a little more. As the product life cycle continues on, you get towards the end, those late buyers in that initial channel, they are looking for a better deal, they want lower prices, etc. So those marketing channels, unless you're willing to significantly adjust your product, those marketing channels do not survive forever. So they do shift over time, and you do need to address that as your product life cycle goes on. Next question. Marketers need to focus less on the side of the value network that looks toward the customer. The answer to this question is true. Our textbook talks a little bit about the value network and how marketers in the past have focused on that. That's really what they're focusing on. But especially with the advent of more integrated health systems, etc., where it's a more of a network that you're looking at, marketers really want to start participating in those upstream activities. So I might be a marketer for Allegheny General Hospital, for example. But marketers in that setting really need to be participating upstream. So in the Allegheny Health Network, even at the level of Highmark Health, to really become kind of a network manager. And that it'll focus them less on, okay, what value can my organization bring to the customer, and more to what value can our network bring to the customer. And that can help bring some additional breadth and depth to your marketing activities. So our answer in this case, marketers need to focus less on the side of the value network that looks toward the customer. That was true, because we want marketers to start looking upstream. Last question. In healthcare services and products, sales are not sensitive to price reductions. And the answer to this question is false. There are actually buyers, and it does discuss it in the textbook, buyers that are price sensitive. They're estimating, based on the data at that time, it was about 15 to 35% of buyers are price sensitive. But I'd be willing to bet that is increasing due to the advent of the consumer-driven health plan, where you're looking at a $2,000 individual deductible. You want to go somewhere where you're going to you're paying out of pocket ultimately. You want to maximize your pay that you're making to that facility. So if with some price transparency, which is now required under the Affordable Care Act, if you look to see that facility A charges $800 for the test that you need, and facility B charges $400 for the test you need, you're likely going to go to facility B, as long as that's okay under your insurance plan. And there are wild shifts in price like that, especially in the hospital space. So there are, as they estimated in the book, about 15 to 35% of buyers are price sensitive, but I'd be willing to bet that we'll see that continue to increase with more and more folks that have consumer-driven health plans. So let's flip over. I want to just take a brief look at week 7. So this is our last full week. Remember that in week 8, next week, it's a short week, so it ends on Friday. But so in week 7, we have a few different activities to take part in. There are some, there's a video, I believe this is a video on marketing trends, a few handouts, our chapters 13 and 14 in the text. But in our discussion, I want to focus on ethics. So think about ethics in marketing, and it can be in any sector, but reflect on those challenges that relate to marketing in that area. So perhaps you've seen deceptive marketing, or perhaps you've seen marketing that you felt was not completely ethical. And I won't go into detail here. I'll try and leave that for the board itself. But look at those types of things, maybe even share examples of what you've seen, what your thoughts are on these, on various marketing practices and the ethics related to that. I can say just generally there are a lot of ethical concerns related to direct-to-consumer advertising, especially in the pharmaceutical sector or in the medical device sector. There are some ethical concerns there. But there are ethical challenges in all aspects of marketing. We didn't do marketing in healthcare until the 1980s due to legal challenges. It was inappropriate to market in many instances. So marketing in healthcare is still really something that's developing and changing, and we need to make sure that we're always acting in an ethical manner. Also, obviously, you got a quiz this week, but you have the final project that will be due on Sunday night. And here's your your information about the project, but you're going to be submitting to this Turnitin link down here. So I couldn't necessarily include all of this info in the way I wanted to. You can't use bullets or bold or any of that when you add instructions under a Turnitin link. So I wanted to make sure that it was clear up there what the breakdown of points were, etc. If you have any questions about the final project, like I said, I'm still working on those drafts. Hopefully by the time you're watching this, you will have yours back. I hope to finish them up today. And probably the biggest things that I've seen, I am going to recommend, actually, because I've recommended it to a few already, so let me just flip open my book here. On pages 142 and 143 in your textbook is a sample marketing plan, the content that's included. And probably the biggest challenges that I'm seeing so far is that some of the plans are looking like business plans. So here's what we're going to do to change our organization to make it better. Remember, that's not our focus. Our focus is marketing. So if those changes have a marketing focus, okay, I'll just use an example. I won't tell you whose paper it was, but I had an example where they're going to do some renovation within their organization to make it more patient-friendly, an environment that's more conducive to the type of service they're providing. That's fine, because that is directly linked to the additional marketing that they'll do to broadcast that out to everyone. We have comfortable space, very soothing, etc. So when it's like that, it's important to include. But overall, this isn't a strategic plan. This is a marketing plan. So make sure that you're not including a lot of, here's how we're going to improve operations in our facility, because that's not really what our focus is. Our focus is what strategy that you're taking part in is directly related to marketing. And on pages 142 and 143 are kind of those elements of the marketing plan that might help to direct you. I am not expecting to find financial projections. If you want to talk a little bit about budget generally, that's fine because it could have a big play in your plan, but I'm not looking for specific projections or anything for finance. The one other thing that I will mention from that market analysis perspective, a lot of the market analyses are kind of lacking. We're looking for detail. So you want a detailed market analysis. For example, if I was writing um, a, a marketing plan for a hospital here in the Pittsburgh region, part of my market analysis would be, what hospitals are our competitors, what are the strengths and weaknesses internally of our hospital, but what are the opportunities and threats externally? Back to that SWOT analysis. So if I'm a hospital, I have all of these competitors. What are our strengths in relation to those competitors? What are our opportunities with relation to those competitors? What are our threats? How are they threatening our business? What do we provide that they don't? That's going to be those opportunities. So it's not just focus on that. It's obviously a little more broad, and take a look at that info in the textbook. You want to be looking at legal regulatory issues, economic issues, potential political issues, all of those types of things, especially in healthcare. We're thinking about reimbursement. So do you have services that are reimbursable? Do your contracts with your payers reflect appropriate mix of patients, etc. So you really want to be thinking in detail and not just generally, we're going to do an analysis. You want to be giving me some of that detail of that analysis as best you can from your knowledge base by doing internet search or whatever. It doesn't need to be perfect. Kind of reflect back on that SWOT analysis that we did. I think most everyone gave me some good strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats for their organization. You're going to want to take that if you're doing the same organization here, take that SWOT analysis and put it right in this document. You really want to be doing the analysis and not just telling me you're going to do an analysis. And monitoring plan at the end. That's another thing that I'm seeing that's a little bit weak, although it wasn't really detailed as a piece that we were really focusing on for the draft. But so you want to make sure that you're doing a detailed marketing monitoring plan. So once you're doing these marketing pieces, what are you doing to monitor for effectiveness, and what changes you might want to make to the marketing plan over time based on the data you see coming in. And again, you want to be detailed in that. You don't want to just say, we're going to do some monitoring, or we're going to have a meeting and monitor. Well, how are you going to monitor in that meeting? What data points are you going to collect? Those types of things. So hopefully that's helpful. Like I said, any other questions, let me know. Don't just put a question here in the Ed puzzle, because I won't see that until week 8. It'll be too late. So if you have questions, email, call me directly. I'm happy to address those. So have a good week, and look forward to your final projects.